I'm Mike Kelly from Project Healing Waters, Omaha, and this is session 2 of the beginner fly tying class. Tonight we're going to do the woolly bugger. Here's what we're going to be tying. It's a palmered fly. If you look at the way the hackle is run down the body in a spiral, that's called palmering. And that type of fly has been around since the 1600s in Europe. The modern version of the fly is attributed to Russell Blessing of Pennsylvania around 1967 to represent a Hellgrammite or a Dobson fly nymph. To me, I've always thought it looks a lot like a leech, but it's one of those flies that will always catch fish. Some people say, why tie other flies? Because all you got to use is a woolly bugger. And that can be true, but I have fun trying different things. But this is one of the top flies that people use and buy, has been for several years. For the materials, the tail is marabou, and this is a strung marabou where all these marabou feathers are basically stitched together along the bottom of the rachis here. And so all you do is just, pluck each one from the stitching. So the tail is marabou, the body is this medium chenille. If you're tying these down into small sizes, like say 12, 14, you could go with a, if I have any handy here, you could go with a smaller needle. Have any handy? There's ultra chenille, and it's a lot more dense than this. This is more loose fibers. But you want to make the chenille on the body proportionate to the size of the hook. My microphone slipped off. Sorry about that. So I'll go back. Basically, you just want the chenille to match the size of the hook. And then for the rib is going to be this gold wire. You can use copper wire, silver wire, whatever you have, or even a colored wire. It doesn't show up that much, so it doesn't really matter. And then the hackle is a color to match. I think you guys are using olive tonight. So we kind of talked about the way hackle is on a bird. This is a half neck. It's kind of a cheaper way to get dry fly materials. And the head would be right up here. And then these are the hackles that come down the back of the neck. And I've used a lot of these for dry flies, but these longer ones that are around the sides and the back, this is the part that goes toward the saddle of the bird. And so these are the feathers that you would use for a woolly bugger. So the hook that I'm going to use is it's basically this is a 3X long hook. And let me switch cameras. To me, a 3X long hook is a good proportion. You could use 4X long if you had it. But I think this is a good proportion for these. It gives it a good shape and proportion. So you want a long shanked hook. If you were using a regular nymph hook, I suppose you could do that as well, but the body would be real short. Just be a little stubby woolly bugger. So I'm going to start the hook about an eye length back, maybe a little bit more. And then start laying down a thread base. And I covered how to do that before. I'm holding this tag end of my thread, I'm holding it tight at an angle so that it draws all of those wraps close together. And I can quickly go down the shank of the hook. And then when it gets toward the back here, I can just cut that out of the way. Now, for the marabou, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. For the marabou, I've got my strung marabou here, and I'm just going to grab one of these feathers. I tore that one apart. Let me try this again. Grab it down a little lower. So I plucked one of these out, and if you look at this, it's kind of a scraggly one too. Try another one. Okay, that's better. If you draw this marabou, draw it up toward the top, you can see that makes like a fluffy tail there. All this stuff here at the base that's kind of misshapen. Sometimes it looks kind of greasy. Just kind of strip that out of the way just to, and then actually for this fly, you want the tail to be about the length of the hook. So if I hold this up at the eye like this, I can measure my tail. So then I'll mark that with my thumb and put that where my thread is. And then I'm going to do a couple of real tight wraps, maybe 3. And then I'll just start moving forward. I'm going to show you an easier way to do that. I got ahead of myself. I'm going to measure my tail again. Move my thread toward the front of the hook. So there I measured my tail, and I'm going to place it at the back of the hook. And now in the front here, I'm going to capture that marabou, and then with spaced wraps, I'm going to wrap that back toward the back. So that when I hang my thread down, it's right at the notch of the barb of the hook there. And then I'll come up here and cut off that excess. So there's the tail. And now I want to tie in a piece of that gold wire that I'm going to use for the rib. And I'm making that the length of the body. And that's a good habit to get into because you don't want to get lumps and bumps in your body. You want it to stay relatively level like that. So I've got the tail and the ribbing wire. So now I'm going to take this chenille and but I already had a piece cut off. When you cut your chenille, it's best to cut it at one of the edges of the card here. So as it unwraps from the card, because there's always a little bit of a bend there, and you don't want that to be in the middle of your eyeing. So I cut a piece loose that's about three lengths, three card widths. And I'm going to take this chenille, and right there on the edge of it, I'm going to pinch it and just pull some of those little fibers away. Bring this with space straps back to the back of the hook. And then I'm going to tie that core, that string core, down with nice tight wraps, and then bring it forward. Now what that did is it let me tie that chenille in without causing a big bump. If I was to, I'll start this in the middle of the hook. If I was to tie this down with all of that in there, that's going to leave all of this bulk. Okay. So now I've got a nice smooth underbody right here. And I brought my thread back up to the front of the hook there. So now I'm going to take this chenille and with touching wraps, I'm going to move that forward. And cover the body. But I don't want to crowd the eye too much. So right about here, I want to go ahead and stop. So I'm going to bring my thread over the top one more time. Pull that nice and tight. Take a couple wraps on the shank and then a couple more over the top. And then I'll go ahead and cut that out of the way. Now you can kind of take your fingernail and remove some of that fuzz, and that'll also keep you from getting a bulky head. So next is the feather. And again, I selected a couple of feathers from right out here in this. It's kind of webby a little bit and longer barbules. So here's one right here. And the stem is real thick down here toward the base. And if you were to try to wrap that around the hook, it's going to probably break, split, and it'll also cause a lot of bulk. You still have some nice length to the feather here. So you want to move up to where the rachis, or the center of the feather, starts to get thinner. And then cut that off with a little short stub there. And then with real tight wraps, I'm going to take about 3 wraps there. And I'm going to come around the back, take a wrap, maybe one more back there. And that's going to secure that feather real tight. And I'm just going to let my thread hang. And I'll get a hackle pliers, grab the tip of that hackle. And I want my feather to start wrapping so the shiny side of the feather is facing the eye of the hook. And right here at the front, I want to take 2 good wraps. If I was to not do that, a lot of people make this mistake. People have problems with a woolly bugger causing their tippet to spin. So if you just start into a spiraled wrap here and go back with spiraled wrap starting at the front, you basically created a corkscrew. So as you pull that through the water, the tension on these barbules is going to cause this fly to actually spin in the water. To prevent that, you want to take 2 good wraps here at the front and then start doing your palmered wrap. Spaced wraps going back toward the back of the hook. Now, sometimes your feather might be a little shorter than you expected, and you might have to go back and start all over, but this is going to turn out just about right. So now I'm going to take my gold wire and I've got one good tight wrap back there, so I'm going to move my hackle pliers out of the way. And I want to do 2 or 3 wraps right back here to hold that in place. And then I'm going to start moving forward through the fly. Now, a lot of people say to wiggle your wire back and forth to try to not trap the barbs. Sometimes it's easier if you just zip through it like that, and that'll cause them to snap out of the way and bring it forward. If you were going a little bit slower, you can just take that wire and kind of wiggle it back and forth like that, and that keeps from trapping the fibers, but sometimes you do anyway. So I just found it's best to just wrap a little bit faster, and wrapping fast like that causes those hackles to just snap back out of the way. I'm going to stroke those back a little bit out of my way. And then I'm going to tie down this wire, holding my hackles back. And then holding my thread tight, I'm pulling tight. You can take your wire and helicopter it or move it back and forth, and it's going to end up breaking. If you cut it, there's a couple of things to note. If you cut your wire, that's going to leave like a chisel edge on that wire, the stub that's sticking up, and that can commonly cut your thread. Another thing is if you're going to use your scissors to cut the wire back toward the back of your scissors back in here. This is where all the delicate work is done with your scissors, with hackles and thread and materials. But back in here in the throat, you can use that to cut the wire, and that way you don't dull your tips. So now I'm going to whip finish from back to front. And cut my thread free. And then I'll put a little bit of head cement on there. Now, I just want to show you something on this brush that came with the, this is Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. The brush that came with this was big and thick. So I kind of cleaned it all off pretty good. And then I cut the most of the bristles off of there. So I just have a few on there. So it's a lot better to put glue on the heads of smaller flies. And that's a woolly bugger.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
When you were working with the hackle and then bringing it forward, remember that surgical tubing tip we saw last week on BT's Fly Fishing Friday? Do you think that would help to hold the hackle back just as you worked it forward? I mean, just from a
I know what you're talking about. You were talking about when I made the head, or when?
You got done with the head and you're getting ready to wrap on the wire, right? Remember how you're pounding it back? You're moving it backwards so you don't get it all wrapped up, inside as you're making the final portion of the head.
I'm not
No.
sure where the tubing would help.
Well, if you have fingers that don't work right, I'm just thinking out loud.
But maybe
Right, Bill, let us know what you find out.
yeah, give it a try and see what you think.
Good job.
Looks good. Thank you, Mike.
So now I'll go through it again with you guys tying along, and we'll go step by step. So is there any questions yet on what we did?
You know, watch good, take that off. That tail is way too long.
Tail?
Yeah. Fine.
Might have come in.
So if you tied along while I was doing the first one, let me know when you're all done, and we'll do a step by step.
See it.
And we'll continue from there.
We missed the feeling of it. So.
While we're getting to that point, there's another common, a lot of people will tie a woolly bugger with a brass bead.
Button for digging. Okay. What you do is
Okay, what you can do now is
you
you can grab this,
Marabou.
pull it.
You can grab it if you
This
want.
one, hold it right about there. Just between your fingers. And then you-
Mike,
Yes,
if you put an orange bead on a black woolly bugger, it looks like a leech sucking off of a trout's egg.
right. Egg sucking leech. That's a really good idea. You can use any color of bead. Some people like it not to be so shiny, like a black bead, like a smoky colored bead. And basically to do that, you just take your hook and these beads, fly tying beads. They have a small hole on one side, and then the other side is quite a bit bigger. And so you take the small hole and put the point of the hook into the small hole, and then just put the bead onto the hook. And you basically tie the fly the same way, but that gives it a little bit of flash and a little bit of weight. And you can also wrap some lead wire under the body before you do it. But otherwise, let me know when you all have a hook ready, and we'll get started on round number 2.
Second wrapping. If
Okay,
it's still
Mike, they're working on their tails now.
around the hook.
Okay.
There you go.
Do a third wrap. Now just stop for a second.
Okay.
Let's look at
Okay,
that.
you've got it secured, so you can let that
I'm not
hand
gonna-
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
One thing you can do is this is kind of like a partial rotary vise.
Mhm.
You're centered. See that? If you look underneath, see how it looks almost uniform.
Just clip that thread off.
Mhm.
That's break it up. Yeah, just get rid of that excess thread.
Okay.
You didn't want that on.
And sometimes what you do with feathers is sometimes
Hold
you
it
get
straight.
2 or 3 wraps,
There you
2
go.
wraps.
Clip
you
it
just
that
let
way
the
you don't
weight
cut
of
off
hold
your-
up, and you just
Your thread on the.
pick the feather on both ends.
Okay,
and
down, add that
lift
up
it on the
beyond
top of the hook.
Okay.
Because then what happens is you've got those wraps
That's too long.
like a
There you go.
so then it's not flopping around all over the place on you.
So then do I
That's
wrap
good.
it all the way down now?
Yeah,
Take
now
that
you
to
got
the
the
house.
Done.
Now, when I start this, am I gonna do it on this side first?
Oh, just come right over the top. There you go. Put about 2 good wraps on it.
Okay.
Couple, put one more on it and good and tight. Okay, now start wrapping forward. There you go. Now, watch, see how that marabou wants to start rolling on you as you go
Yeah,
forward?
yeah.
Okay, that's when you let go with your left hand
Okay.
and you hold on to this. Let's tighten this up. There you go. Switch hands and you just kind of grab this with your right hand.
Yep.
And then you just bring your bobbin over and let it go. Just like that.
All right.
Just wrap that all the way up to about half eye width back.
Yeah, you go.
There you go. A little bit further.
You're doing great.
Okay, right there.
Now, Give yourself a couple more wraps over.
A little bit more.
Yeah, get it up to four.
Don't go on it. Yeah, there you go. Use your backhand to lock yourself in position. There you go.
Okay, so
Now,
You're wrapping over the same place again and again and again. See it right there?
Yeah.
It's okay. Just go ahead and wrap. There you
Hold
go. There you
pinch
go.
wrap.
Okay, stop right there and let's see what we got. That's good.
All right, so just
Try
try,
to take a couple of wraps in front of it. Now hold it straight up. Couple of wraps in front to lock it down.
okay?
There you go. Now cut it off.
chenille or not chenille,
Couple of wraps in front.
Okay. Let me show you something. Let me get
Pull it up
myself
tight.
lined up.
Couple of wraps in front. And now just cut that marabou off.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can't tighten that vise down for you. a little bit.
these vices, right?
hold it with the left.
Hold it with your left.
It's gonna be enough.
Now, what happens is, once you get the very first couple of wraps, and I'm gonna show you a little trick here, Mike, showed it online.
Take your scissors
With the mirror view, okay,
Yeah.
is.
Otherwise you get a
you
big
need a
bump right there.
Feather.
Watch
I'll
out.
show you what
Yeah.
you did. Okay.
That's exactly what I was
I
thinking.
wrapped myself, basically to my hook point, I made a few loose wraps back. About the center.
Where'd Mike go?
Okay,
Okay, so.
I'm here.
Let's unwrap yourself just real quick.
I'm here.
I finally got it
Oh,
wrapped.
there you go.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, so where is everybody?
I need to cut, I think.
Okay, everybody's got their tail on, Mike.
So then where do I cut it? I missed that.
You're gonna actually cut it to about right.
So you've actually,
Wrap it all the way forward.
Pull that marabou straight up.
Straight up.
Oh, well,
and cut it.
Well, straight up, and then just cut off right there, flush with the hook. No, way down, way down,
Way
way
down,
down,
yeah.
flush with the hook.
Yeah, you want a uniform
So-
body.
so you guys actually have your tail on?
Yeah,
Okay. I was waiting for you to have the hook in the vise.
okay, it'll disappear.
Okay.
It'll disappear. Sorry, Mike.
I think I
That's
breathed
fine.
that.
I'll catch up to you here in a second.
Feathers off a marabou if worst came to worst.
Fibers and we strip them off and use them. I've also used just the fibers of the marabou for the tail. Just strip
So
'em off.
repetition helps. So I'm gonna go over measure my tail,
Feather.
put it in the back. I'm gonna move my thread forward so I can tie it down.
You can make a nice.
So tail is measured. Set it in the back and then come up here. And this is where I want to tie it down.
That was a good feather, by the way.
See, Mike ties his.
Couple of good tight wraps right there. And then spaced tight wraps going back to the back.
Oh, what did I?
And then I'll make a couple of wraps here at the back and let my thread hang. Now I can go ahead and cut this out. And remove some of that fuzz. So there's my tail. And that's where everybody else is. John? John, you lost audio.
There we go.
Wasn't quite, it's not pretty.
That's fine.
Okay, you got audio back. All right. So I got my tail on.
Why? It caught something.
Yeah.
I did, I pulled all the way to the end, I put it in the middle.
So next we're gonna tie on the wire. So I hold that the length of the body. Couple of tight wraps at the back, and then I can do spaced wraps. Try to keep it fairly straight so it doesn't twist around. It doesn't matter on this fly since we have chenille, but it's a good habit to get into to keep your materials going straight down the shank if you can. I've got a smooth body.
Yeah, wrap it on there. I'll show you.
My wire's tied down.
That's a little too much on the front. You want the majority of you want the long length on the back. You only need about a half an inch on front.
Did we go all the way back, did he say?
Okay, what Mike is doing is he's wrapping from the back to the front.
Okay,
Get that in.
So the wire is right back here at the back.
okay,
I'll just
That's good. Just keep going. Just keep
all
wrapping.
right.
I'll wrap forward.
move that out of the way with a clip.
And now what I want you to do is
go around there, just like this, start it out like
Show
this,
you a little trick.
caught in it.
Okay.
Times.
Then let me know when everybody has their wire.
That's the outside of your way.
Yeah.
About an eighth of an inch. Yep, move closer, there, right there. Now, if you do this.
So we're
now
too
wrap it
glass.
back to the back. That fold over is gonna keep that wire from ever falling out.
Okay. It will never go.
And that's a trick that I saw when Alex did this line. Don't wrap with it, what you do with the wire.
Am I supposed to wrap it?
No, don't wrap the wire. Take your thread now and wrap
Wrap it all the way
over,
back.
wrap back to the back. And this little thing right here, okay, get your wire in between that spring. No,
That was a
over
good
the side.
move. Oh, slides.
Yeah, that's a material holder.
Okay.
That way it keeps it on your way.
Now,
Oh.
John brought up an interesting point with the wire. A lot of people do run the wire up and then fold it back and wrap over that folded piece. Like he said, it adds strength to it, but I have never had the wire pull out for a rib. As long as you're doing tight spaced wraps there, because you're going in this direction, you're not pulling straight out the back. You're not really going to pull that rib out. And then since you're wrapping in this direction, it's not really going to have the pull this way. But that is a good idea for a lot of your bigger streamers and stuff like that, where you're have
Nice.
articulated streamers and stuff like that. So
Yeah, you can see.
everybody
that
has their wire in.
between
In between what?
the line, because you can see the wire.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
So I'm not doing it, 'cause, like, was trying to make mine.
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
Yeah, the wire can show because you're going to have chenille over the top. I'm going to open spiral wraps. I'm going to go back to the back of the hook again.
If you don't want to, you don't even have to follow the pattern. You can do whatever you want to do.
Oh, you go all the way back?
Yeah.
Just now.
All the way
Yeah.
back. And then I'm going to pick the chenille out a little bit to where I have the core exposed. You can do that as long as you feel like you want to do it. I do at least like about a quarter of an inch there.
I'm just trying not to bend the hook today. That's been my goal.
Yeah, you're a moose.
Yeah, just be
careful.
gentle, just easy, gentle wraps.
And then holding that against the shank, just go ahead and tie down that core.
If you're worried about bending the hook, bring your thread, pull it straight up,
Straight up?
yeah, and then, no, pull straight up. Put some tension,
That's fine, you're okay.
not that hard.
Totally recoverable.
Gee whiz, boy, yeah.
Just you said pull straight up.
Yeah, I didn't say 40 pounds of force on it.
And so what do I do now? I got,
So seriously, if you have trouble with
Break it?
pulling too hard and you know
Okay.
putting too much pressure on it, get yourself some
okay.
8/0 thread, some more narrow thread, deeper thread, and then just start going through some basic wrapping and stuff like that, and that'll break. It'll break often. Get yourself a bobbin threader and just get used to where you can do some basic tying back and forth using that lighter thread.
That's why I laid on it.
Yeah, I
It's
was-
easier.
That'll set you up for having the right tension. You want it to be tight, but you don't want to bend the hook or break the thread. So
Through, obviously about 6 or 8.
Now, oh, did he go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, forward.
Just like you made a jam knot when you
With
started
the-
here, make a jam.
So he did that thing with the,
Not this guy, all the way back.
Where do
there.
you-
See, we broke it?
Right.
So start making yourself a jam
So
knot
he
there,
just-
go forward over it, back, and then you're tight.
did he just start in the back? I missed where
Yeah,
the.
yeah, you bring your thread all the way to the back.
Okay,
yeah, I'll go through that again. I basically, once I tied my wire in,
Now,
Give
over
yourself
top of
plenty
it,
of
remember
room.
how a jam knot, you go over top of it?
Oh, that's right.
like that?
Yeah, there you
So
go.
then you
Okay.
wrap and go
when
forward.
my wire was tied in, I was back up here.
Okay,
Okay, give yourself,
So I just took spaced wraps again, going back to the back of the hook.
bring yourself forward. Now, you're right back to going good. Good.
right back to there.
It will never die.
Okay.
It
All
won't
the
fall
back to
apart.
the back.
And
Then I picked the extra little fibers out of my chenille,
Okay,
laid that down on the back of the hook there and
Yeah,
tie
right.
down that core.
There you go.
Couple real good wraps to hold that core down.
You want it on the top.
Then move it all the way back to the front of the hook.
Here you go. That's good for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop right there. Yeah.
Bring it all the way forward. Yeah, bring it all the way
Okay, no, that's good.
Some
Well
people
secured in there.
will-
I wouldn't,
There you go.
don't go yank it like you did that thread, but you feel it's tight.
okay.
Remember, you're gonna wrap that.
Yeah, go again.
Wrap the chenille?
And
Yeah.
then you're gonna.
Okay.
Watch what he does.
Right.
It just said we were coming.
So if we're ready to wrap the chenille,
Second, yeah, yeah, I think we're ready to go, Mike.
okay,
That was copied from the gastro doctor.
took the string all the way up front though.
we just
And I
take it
changed
around with a fairly tight wrap. And then just try to go as close as you can to the wrap before it.
Yeah, so when you wrap them, you wanna
And
keep.
just wrap forward.
Your body.
started doing these things myself.
Yeah,
You get a call from the backup people, the people.
Keep it
Top of each other. See
fairly
how-
close together until you get
Yeah, see how it makes like.
up here toward the eye. You don't want to crowd it too much, so leave a little space, leave about an eye length space. And put a wrap over that chenille. To hold it tight, and then give it a couple more,
Out of the crowd.
Okay. So as you go.
couple around the hook shank. And a couple more over the top. Then
Yeah, we got a little.
you can cut that chenille and then just take your fingernail and just kind of
Okay.
pull that extra fuzz away.
There, now secure it.
Directly over.
Snag it.
Yeah,
No,
you
you're
two loops over and you got it.
This way?
No, you're right, this way.
This way.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you're a little close to
Get
me.
your thread out.
Bring her back, cause you won't count
That's all right, just.
room to be able to work your.
There.
In your head.
Secure that thing down really good.
So now I cut the chenille.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
cut the chenille.
Pull your chenille.
As tight as
Yep,
possible.
that's it. So now wrap in front of it.
One of it.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yes,
Okay.
those are what we call locking wraps. That locks the chenille in. So now you got some behind it, you got some in front of it. That's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Now you can just let your bobbin go and clip that off close to the hook and you're ready for step number 342.
Am I cutting the chenille?
Yep.
Okay.
Please don't cut your bobbin thread.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I think it.
Now.
Well, you're okay, you're
Yeah,
okay.
so your head.
I'm gonna
This is
You have to bring.
about right here. This is the closest I can go.
Okay, you'll do it, and you'll do it again and again and
Right
again.
there.
This is one this weekend and I did it for work.
Just, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I just need two.
just having fun doing it.
Yeah, that just happens. You get thinking about something else?
Oops, we pull forward.
Or you listen, you do what you're told, you know, remember I was an army, and you said pull straight up, I pulled.
Yeah. I didn't say pull straight up with 5,000 tons.
With
Yeah.
deadly force.
What you wanna do, if you don't have a flight time kit at home, do you have a flight time kit at home?
I do, I have one of the box ones, but I was trying to go, I was watching the video, trying to go and spin it, and I had to put my hand on it.
Because you got that little.
Yeah, it is a little light. What I
You
do
got
is
that
I go
dent
down to
there.
Yeah. Hobby Lobby or one of these
That
places, buy
causes
some of
me
these
to
really
roll
cheap
forward.
plastic.
So I gotta, I
clamps.
gotta actually do it much
You know,
higher.
Fold up and then got a trigger on
I'm
it.
gonna have to do it
And I
right
use
there.
that and I
See how
just
I
tighten
fold
it down a little
Yep.
bit.
And I can still
Put them on
see
the
my
corners.
eye. Cause I need that
That's
flat
secure.
spot in order for me to be able to.
Oh, yeah, you're right, they are a little light.
Yeah,
See.
and I'm just trying to get a light, soft tan
If I had a.
with this.
Okay, we got everybody got their chenille on?
Bring the
Yep.
bump all the way back out
Okay.
there. And I gotta look at your mice.
Okay, next is the feather. So I'm gonna make sure my wire's out of the way.
I gotta modify it. I got a modification that makes.
I'm gonna take my heckle,
I'll make it, what piece?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Can I borrow this one again for a second?
Pick one that you think will be right.
I'm gonna strip off the fuzzy stuff at the base. And then cut it to where it's a
Yeah.
little less than 1/4 of an inch.
That I've been modifying these.
There you go.
And I'm
No, you wanna do-
Grease on them. Make
you
it
don't
work
need-
a lot easier.
Don't forget about this much.
I didn't bring my stuff with
Okay.
me tonight.
So what
I
you're gonna
didn't
do
know
is
about
kind of.
this.
No worries.
And then I'm gonna, once you get your feather prepared. So strip off the fuzzy stuff and then clip it, so you have a short stem there.
You're gonna start stripping clear right back to here, because you don't want any of that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna.
Okay,
Everybody's ready.
Okay,
And you want to take,
and you're, because we're gonna look at.
I have my feather oriented, and this is important. I have my feather oriented so the shiny side is facing up, out toward the front. I'm gonna make a couple of wraps,
like that.
Yeah, like that.
leaving a little bit of space right there before the barbules start. So when I start to wrap it, it's not going to get fouled up. So I take a couple of tight wraps here, and then I'll come around the back, take a wrap,
It's plenty.
How long?
and then that locks that in. And that feather's locked in place.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you got all the silver fuzzy stuff. You don't wanna have any of that fuzzy stuff in. So what you can do is you can strip yourself from here.
Hey, miss it. Okay.
And so there's two ways. You can either pull back like this.
Down twice,
Can I just pull back?
Yeah.
and lift it up,
Let's go.
and then go.
And then
Okay,
you go
behind
like-
it,
Awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
And
okay,
okay. Put a little more torque on it
okay,
when you put that.
oh,
That's
and
right.
remember, shiny side this way. There's a shiny side and a dull side to the feather.
Every reps. You
Yeah,
know,
the shiny side, you always
Kind of
face towards the fish,
tighten it down.
the
There
direction
you
you're going.
No,
Oh, is that the dull
all right,
side?
Yeah, that's the dull side.
Okay,
So, yeah, you want the shiny side facing towards,
Okay.
you go behind it again,
Oh, one more behind it.
yeah,
so
yeah, there's
There
a
you
couple
go.
ways.
All right.
to
Oh,
do
it's got to
this,
secure.
right? A
okay,
lot
Now
of
you're done with
people
that.
will hold it at an
Okay.
angle like this, and
okay.
they'll make a couple wraps.
Which you're probably gonna need because that
And this
feather is
is
a
the
little
way.
shorter than what Mike is
So if you
using.
look up at the screen, my shiny side is facing forward here, up, and forward.
This.
That's the shiny side, and then the dull side is back over here.
What you wanna do is you wanna have
Okay.
enough
What
so
we're
you
gonna do is
can
we're gonna use
pull
these
this
guys.
out, right?
Yeah.
And you can start making
Yeah, what do I
one
do?
full wrap
Watch Mike.
all right,
without it bunting up on itself.
I'm
And
gonna-
then do
I'm gonna
the-
grab it with the hackle pliers, either tip.
Don't wrap your thread. Oh, it came out?
yeah, the moment that I broke,
Okay.
it broke,
It
Let me know
broke?
when you're ready.
Okay.
So like 2 or 3 wraps on it to hold it down.
Now, what Al did taught us then is tie it back like that and create a
Okay.
thread now, but,
there we go,
I want to do this
so,
that way. Okay, we're just gonna leave it alone for now. We're gonna.
Get your hackle pliers out now. And just hold on to the hackle pliers and don't put any force on that feather. If you can. I think I'm ready to go, Mike.
yeah,
Okay. Let me zoom out a little bit. I'm gonna grab the tip of that feather with the hackle pliers. And then I'm gonna come down and start getting ready to wrap. So I want 2 good wraps right here at the front.
One,
this
two.
is,
There's 2. And then I start palmering backwards. And
Notice
make
that
spaced wraps down the body.
you space them out about 4 wraps, maybe 5, depending on the length of your fly.
okay,
The
About
longer,
4 or 5.
the longer the hook shank, the more wraps you're gonna have on that,
Okay.
that feather. And the real trick, the fish don't care, but the people care, is to get those wraps equally spaced so that they're consistent.
If you try to make your flies, a lot of people say the fish don't care, and that's true. But if you try to make your flies perfect to the way that you know they're supposed to be tied every time, that gives you consistency. And when you're looking at flies in your fly box, you're always going to grab the ones that look better. And those ones that you thought, well, the fish don't care, you'll never use them.
Never use them.
I've still got some in my box that I've even gotten rid of because it, like, well, I've now learned to tie a little bit better than that, so I'm getting rid of those. But
Yeah, some of my box that I tied when I first started tying back in 1977. And I think they've been used twice.
the key is that it teaches you how to do the right thing. You know, if you keep trying to be perfect every time, that gives you flies that you're proud of, but it also reinforces all of the basic fundamentals, the techniques and stuff. So I have my tip of my hackle feather here at the back end. I'm going to take one good wrap, and then I can let go of my hackle pliers and get it out of the way.
Is he using the wire?
Yeah, he's using
With the wire. Yes, with the wire.
Okay.
I'm going to take 2 wraps back there and then start coming forward. And again, you want these to be evenly spaced. I didn't on the last one that very well because I was playing back and forth to show you the wrapping. Bring those through up to the front where your head is. And then you can hold your hackles back like this and wrap some tight wraps around that wire. And then just take it and helicopter it like that. It should break off. That's the best way to do that with the wire.
Did you wrap it again with the string?
No,
Or just the,
So once I got the wire forward, I wrapped over the end of the wire several times.
Finally lock in, Emil.
And then holding my thread real tight, then I did the little helicopter thing and it broke underneath the thread. And when you break it that way, it's got a little bit of a nub on the end.
Grab the
So
wire,
it
then
holds in there and keeps from slipping out. And also you don't have a sharp edge to cut your thread when you're wrapping.
right off, look at that.
yeah, if this thin wire will do that. Sometimes you get into an issue with the thicker wire where you helicopter it and it won't break.
Right.
Do is use your hackle pliers on it. And hold them really tight and use these to helicopter them.
If you have trouble with it breaking, just make sure that this thread that you're holding it real tight. Because if that thread is fairly loose or your bobbin's just hanging straight down, as you turn it like that, it's not really flexing at a sharp point. It's moving around underneath your thread wrap. So hold that thread real tight and then do that helicopter, and it usually is a little more successful. I'm gonna
This is where I always break my feather.
finish my head here, and then that one's done.
My feather popped out. I'm shrink it, get it back in.
And the woolly bugger is not just for trout. Excellent smallmouth fly, largemouth like them, crappie like them, bluegills like them.
I got you, Sean.
I've got just about everything under the sun. on our woolly
People use
bugger.
woolly buggers in the saltwater. If you want to with that, with the tip of that hackle, if yours is longer, sticking out of the back, I didn't mention cutting that. But on mine, it's barely sticking out of there, so you could go in there and cut that tip out. But
You can use your scissors to trim things up and make them look better. You never want to trim your hackle.
Yeah.
So you kind of got what Kelly left. But if your tail is too long, you don't want to use your scissors to trim it, but you can trim it with your fingernails or your thumbnail.
so I'll show you that with the
Okay, Mike will show you.
if you feel like your tail's a little bit too long,
Watch this.
or if the tips out here are real fine, like this one's a little bit fine, you can grab it with your thumbnail against your finger like that and take your other thumbnail and just tear those off. That's a more natural
It is
edge.
more
If
natural.
you just come in with your scissors and cut like that, then you've got a sharp edge back there and that just looks
Looks all funky.
funky.
Yeah, it doesn't look natural, so.
Get another piece of marabou here and Yeah, I can show you a little better. This is actually it's actually pretty good. I should take that out of my trash bin. That would make a good tail.
Good
Because you see
feather.
those tips are all real nice.
Yeah.
But here's a stringy one. You can see those tips of that marabou is real stiff. You can either grab it with your the edge of your scissors, like this,
Reverse your hand.
and your thumb, and then just tear it loose. And then you've got tips that are a little more fluffy.
No, you have to, no, that's right. No, the other way. You wanna go over the top. There. Like the hole.
Oh, that's right.
Right there. You just slide it on. Right there. Yeah, about 2-3 times.
Let's see if it worked.
Flip that off. You got it.
This is what Paul Fidelis caught on a woolly bugger. He said it was his
Wow.
first fish caught on a fly. I see 2 of them unless I'm seeing double.